If Saw 3 had been the last one, it might have gone down as the best horror trilogy in history. But then we get Saw 4 through Saw 10. I'm Seth, and today's day 13 of 365, reviewing every movie I've seen in theaters with the stubs to prove it. Today's movie, Saw 3, directed by Darren Lynn Bousman and starring Angus McFadden, Tobin Bell, and Shawnee Smith. This was Jigsaw's last stand, in my opinion, and his final chapter, until the final chapter. This was the first rated R horror movie that I got to see in theaters. I went to see it with my sister and her friend that I had a crush on, and I wanted to keep my eyes open through the whole movie. I was not able to do that. I had to look away during the arm twisting scene. Getting your limbs twisted off, that's a rough way to go. Rewatching it today, it's kind of crazy how well I think this one holds up. The beating of the dead horse happens from 4 on. This movie wanted to commit to the idea of taking out our villain at the end of a trilogy, and I really respect that. I really think that's a big final decision. It's the ultimate expression of Jigsaw asking for forgiveness in exchange for all of the torture that he's given. It's his magnum opus of pain, and then he dies. I think that's a perfect way out. I think that's a really great way to end things. I think it's been diminishing returns from here on, and there have been excellent traps and excellent performances and excellent movies within this series since then, but I really feel like if we had locked in on these 3 and then done spiritual successors or spin-offs, the cult of Jigsaw, something along those lines in future movies, we really could have been saved from the convoluted plot stacking that has to happen further along in the series. Let's dive into Saw 3. I'm very nostalgic for this one. This is really, I think, one of my first major movie moments that I had had growing up. It was such an experience to be able to get to go see an R-rated movie for the first time. I think it's because my sister had just turned 18 and was technically my guardian, because I was not old enough to go see this movie. I was 15. Jesus Christ, I did not know what I was in for. Everybody was really hyped for this one over Halloween. That was the thing I really specifically remember. Someone had recounted the entire plot of Saw 1 to me and my sister, and then my sister wanted to see Saw 3, Seesaw, and I got to be the tag-along. I was ready to be scared. I was not ready to be exposed to the world of gore. I'm not going to say that word out loud because I know that'll get me demonetized real quick, but torture, gore, that genre has stuck with me since then. In fact, my very first feature-length script is very reminiscent of Saw and was very much inspired by the events of watching someone who has a righteous mindset extract pain from people to satisfy something within themselves. We had a lot of fun playing with gore on my movie set. We shot about 20 pages of the script that I had written. This is a script I'm still in the middle of selling, by the way. You're watching a filmmaker in the middle of the process. I'm going through these reviews, but I also have my professional career that I'm pushing into. This movie's a big inspiration to that. This is an indie darling series. The first movie only had $1 million budget, and it made almost $100 million. The subsequent 2, the budget ballooned from $4 million to $10 million on this one, only racking in $160 million. So you can already see the beginnings of diminishing returns. The more they're investing into the movies, they're not specifically getting that back. But the events leading up to the creation of Saw 1 is the path that I saw forward for myself as a filmmaker. If you can get a good script together, get a good short shot, and you can sell your movie idea with a perfect little pitch deck, that's essentially how you become a feature director. I'm on that path right now, and so it's really fun to revisit Saw 3 and go, yeah, this is why I got into it. Not specifically because I want to make Oscar award-winning movies or something so dramatic that it evokes tears from the audience, but to play around with some of the constructs of film, some of the things we're able to do in film. I love playing around with the violent, gory aspects without ever having to hurt or harm a person for real. We can see that represented on screen and kind of play with these more taboo ideas. And I remember how taboo this movie was coming out of the time. It affected me deeply. I'm sitting next to my crush, my sister 1 seat down from us, and I'm doing my best to watch and not cover my ears because the movie was loud. I was doing my best to not cover my eyes because the movie's violent. And we finally get up to the scene where he's allowed to torture his son's killer, and he twists his limbs off. The bone cracking, I know that it's functionally just lettuce getting twisted around in a Foley studio somewhere. I know that now, but my little 15-year-old brain was watching someone get their arms twisted off and listening to the bone snap and break, and it was visceral. Oh, God, to this day, I can feel the goosebumps that I felt, the shiver down my spine as I'm watching grotesque violence on screen for the first time. Little side note, from here, this turned into a long run down the E-Bombs World Daily Net end of the internet. It used to be the Wild West out here, y'all. I can look back and see that maybe that wasn't good for a 15-year-old brain. I'm willing to admit that. However, it did get me interested in filmmaking. My review, I think, as a teen would have been, it's excellent. It's really, really great. I wouldn't have told you that I had a hard time watching it. Watching it as an adult, I still have a really hard time watching this movie. It is visceral. So much of the series is based around extracting pain from victims, and the sequences are so well executed that it can even make up for shoddier acting. And that's not to complain about any of the performances in any of these movies. I think I could pick out a couple that I'm not excellently impressed with. So maybe I just hone in on Angus McFadden here as our protagonist. He's giving us a gut-wrenching performance, and this is an actor I already knew from Equilibrium 4 years previously. I wanted an opportunity to talk about Equilibrium for like a half second. This is one of the coolest side sci-fi movies that you can find. It's deep. They quote Yeats. I love it. Christian Bale is jacked as fuck. Oh my god, call him daddy. Maybe I should stop talking about Equilibrium now. I think where the movie, in my opinion, falters is its need to incessantly top itself. This is something that I'm seeing all across media. It's funny to recognize the roots of it here. It's funny to recognize it in things like Dragon Ball Z. A lot of Robert Kirkman's writing, The Walking Dead and Invincible specifically, is just about topping yourself. There is no real end goal in sight. It is the creative expression of, can you go bigger from here? They will. The Saw series is always going to try to top itself, and I honestly can say there are way more insane traps coming down the line. Let me rest my hat on the argument that the first three, if you were only going to watch the first three and quit, you have seen all you need to see Saw. It's a bad joke, I get it, but you're watching this far, right? If you're doing the long review, you watching this far in? Ultimately, I don't think that this is better than the first film. That's another example of lightning in a bottle, which I'm talking about a lot because the early 2000s was a very eclectic, experimental time in film as things were switching over for the first times into digital, for the first times into digital editing, for the first times into a lot of the tools that we use today. However, I see all the linchpins of previous filmmaking, all of the practical effects and things like that really pull this movie out of the mire into that kind of cult deity status for this kind of stuff. Let me not be prudish. I'm going to see every Saw movie that comes out until they stop making them. I hope I get a chance at making a Saw movie. That would be an absolute dream, because I really think this is a series that could be elevated. There's still room to grow, and when we talk about that one-upsmanship, I don't think that has to be specifically in bigger traps or crazier villains or more insane things. I think the one-upsmanship could come from diving into some of the ideas and thoughts behind the series and actually taking a more philosophical approach. I don't know if anybody wants A24's Saw, but that's basically what I'm pitching here. I think that's going to do it for this one. Yesterday was a short review. Today's going to be a much longer one. It is what it is. I have more to say about the Saw series because it's inspired my filmmaking so much over the years. Question for the day: what's your favorite gore-focused franchise? Mine is definitely going to be Saw. However, I think it is worth mentioning Wolf Creek in the same sentence. I think those movies are like one tier less under Saw, but still a lot of fun, and they haven't killed off their villain in the middle of it to wreck the timeline for everyone. I think that's going to do it for today. Remember, the Patreon has a giveaway. I'm giving away 10 of my ticket stubs for the next month for all of the new patrons that subscribe. You can also follow me on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky. Maybe I should start posting on LinkedIn. Tomorrow's movie is Stranger Than Fiction. I'm excited to jump into Will Ferrell. I'm excited to jump into a little bit of family trauma that I have in the background around this movie. And from there, see you tomorrow.